Bill Gates saves a school from closure. What he does for teachers will leave you in tears. The scene at Jefferson High School was somber. The halls, once filled with the sounds of laughter and eager chatter, were eerily silent. Teachers moved in and out of classrooms with their heads down, their tired eyes betraying the strain of the past few months. Despite their best efforts, the school had become a shadow of its former self. Enrollment numbers had plummeted, and with fewer students, funding dwindled. Classrooms that once buzzed with energy now sat empty, and the administration had made it clear: unless a miracle happened, the school would close by the end of the semester. For Principal Sarah Mitchell, it felt like the end of a dream she had poured her heart and soul into. She had been at Jefferson High for over 15 years, watching generations of children grow into young adults, their futures shaped by the education they received within these walls. But now, after countless meetings with the district board, she had exhausted all options. The decision had been made. It was just a matter of time before the final bell rang, signaling the end of an era. As the weeks passed, the staff started to accept the inevitable. They began saying their goodbyes, trying to ensure that their students would be set up for the best possible future, even if it wasn't at Jefferson. Some teachers, especially those with years of experience, started looking for new jobs, feeling that their time in education was over. They had given their all, but they couldn't fight against the systemic issues that had chipped away at their school. However, it wasn't just the teachers who were affected. The students felt the loss too. Many had grown up in the area, their families attending Jefferson for generations. For them, the school was more than just a place of learning. It was a community, a lifeline. The school had helped them navigate difficult situations, whether it was dealing with family hardships, finding a safe place to express themselves, or preparing for a better life. The thought of losing that connection was devastating. Rumors spread quickly among the students. There were talks of teachers receiving job offers at other schools, of students being reassigned to different districts. But the one thing no one could ignore was the overwhelming sense of fear. Fear that their educational futures were being torn apart, that the school, which had shaped so many of their lives, would soon be a relic of the past. In the midst of this despair, the staff gathered one last time in the teachers' lounge for what they thought would be another meeting of crisis management. It was during that meeting, as they discussed what might be their final days at Jefferson, that the unexpected happened. An email appeared in Principal Mitchell's inbox. The subject line was simple: Bill Gates. And what followed would set into motion a series of events that no one could have predicted. The email from Bill Gates was brief, almost shockingly so. But as Principal Sarah Mitchell read through it, her mind struggled to comprehend what was being offered. The email read, "Dear Principal Mitchell, I've recently come across some troubling news about Jefferson High School. I've heard of the dedication of your staff and the challenges the school is facing, and I believe that education is the most powerful tool we have to change lives. I'd like to offer my support in a way that could make a lasting difference. Let's talk about how I can help. Best regards, Bill Gates." For a moment, Sarah sat in stunned silence. She had read the name Bill Gates countless times in articles, watched him speak at conferences, and heard about his philanthropic efforts. But she had never imagined the tech mogul, someone with so many pressing concerns, would take an interest in Jefferson High. Was this real? Was this a joke? Was someone pranking her? She called a meeting immediately, gathering the school's leadership team and a few senior teachers to discuss the email. No one could quite believe it. Bill Gates? The man who had revolutionized technology and donated billions to health, education, and development? Why would he be interested in a small public high school in Seattle, on the brink of closure? The more they discussed it, the more plausible it seemed. Bill Gates had long been an advocate for education reform. His foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, had already invested millions in initiatives to improve public education across the country. Perhaps this wasn't as far-fetched as it seemed. But still, the question remained: how could someone like Bill Gates help a school like Jefferson High? Before they could formulate a response, a second email arrived. This one was a direct invitation for Principal Mitchell to meet with Gates in person at the Gates Foundation headquarters. The email promised a private meeting where they could discuss how the school could be supported. Without hesitation, Principal Mitchell accepted the invitation. She wasn't sure what to expect, but the opportunity to meet with such a high-profile figure couldn't be passed up. A few days later, she found herself sitting across from Bill Gates in a sleek, modern conference room, the walls lined with bookshelves and framed accolades. Bill Gates entered the room with his characteristic calm demeanor, dressed simply in a sweater and jeans. He extended a handshake and offered a warm smile, though his eyes held an intensity that made it clear this wasn't just a courtesy meeting. Gates wasted no time getting to the point. "I understand that Jefferson High is facing some serious challenges. But more than that, I know you and your teachers are committed to these students. That's why I'm here," Gates began. His voice was steady, filled with purpose. Education is often the only chance a child has to break free from the circumstances they were born into. And from what I've heard, your school has been doing that for years. Principal Mitchell nodded, her throat tightening as she felt the weight of his words. She had worked with such dedication to make Jefferson a place of hope, and to hear those words from Bill Gates himself was both humbling and validating. "I don't want to just throw money at the problem. That's not the kind of solution I believe in," Gates continued. "I want to understand what it is that keeps your school afloat, and I want to help amplify that." For the next hour, Sarah poured her heart out. She explained the history of Jefferson High, the dedicated teachers who had stayed despite the financial hardships, and the students who needed the most help. She told him about the community outreach programs they had created, the partnerships with local nonprofits, and the after-school tutoring sessions that had been a lifeline for many students. But she also described the immense struggles, how teachers were leaving for more stable jobs, how the school had been unable to secure the necessary funding from the district, and how the morale of both students and faculty had taken a drastic hit. The impending closure of the school felt like the end of something precious, something irreplaceable. Bill Gates listened intently, asking questions here and there, his face thoughtful. When Sarah had finished, he leaned back in his chair, looking out of the large windows that framed the skyline of Seattle. He then turned back to her and in a quiet but resolute voice said, "I think we can do something bigger than just saving your school. We can make sure that Jefferson High doesn't just survive, but thrives." Sarah felt a flicker of hope, but she remained cautious. "What do you have in mind?" Gates smiled slightly, the edges of his mouth curling upward with a hint of excitement. "We'll start with the teachers. Without them, there is no school. The teachers are the backbone of Jefferson, and they're the reason it's lasted this long. Let's give them the support they need, the recognition they deserve." He paused for a moment and then added, "And let's make sure that no other school in your district or beyond faces the same struggles. This isn't just about Jefferson. This is about changing the way we think about education." The weight of his words hung in the air. It was clear that Gates didn't just see a troubled school. He saw a chance to reshape the entire educational landscape. What followed over the next few months was nothing short of revolutionary. But it all began with Bill Gates's belief that Jefferson High and the teachers who dedicated their lives to it were worth saving. And in doing so, he would start a ripple effect that would touch countless other schools across the nation. But how would this bold intervention unfold? What would it take to shift the course of this school's future? And could the teachers truly feel the impact of the help Gates was offering? When news spread that Bill Gates himself was stepping in to save Jefferson High, the emotional response from the teachers was immediate and overwhelming. For years, they had poured their hearts into their work, often sacrificing their own well-being to ensure their students thrived. But they had never felt truly appreciated or supported. The lack of resources, constant budget cuts, and the looming threat of closure had taken its toll. Many teachers were already considering leaving the profession altogether, feeling that their efforts were no longer making a difference. But then came the announcement. Bill Gates was going to change that. It started with an all-staff meeting where Bill Gates himself addressed the teachers. Standing at the front of the auditorium, Gates spoke not as a billionaire or a philanthropist, but as someone who understood the immense responsibility that came with shaping the future. He thanked the teachers for their tireless dedication, acknowledging the sacrifices they made every day. "I've heard stories about the incredible work you've done here," Gates said, his voice warm but firm. "You've done more than teach math or science or English. You've taught resilience, compassion, and perseverance. You've kept this school alive because you believe in the future of these students. And that's why I'm here, to make sure you have the resources, support, and recognition you deserve." There was a collective breath in the room as teachers exchanged glances, some with tears already forming in their eyes. For the first time in years, they felt seen. They felt valued. Gates then shared the specifics of his intervention. He promised a complete overhaul of the school's funding model, focusing on securing sustainable resources for the teachers, improving classroom materials, and ensuring that the teachers had ongoing professional development. But perhaps the most emotional part of the meeting came when he announced a new initiative, a Teacher Excellence Fund, designed to provide competitive salaries and bonuses for teachers who went above and beyond in their work. The impact of these words was immediate. Some teachers wept openly, unable to contain the emotional weight of knowing that their years of hard work had finally been recognized in a meaningful way. The fund would not just stabilize their jobs, it would honor their commitment to their students and their craft. "I never thought something like this would happen," said Ms. Harris, a veteran history teacher who had been on the verge of retiring due to the stress and uncertainty. "To hear someone like Bill Gates say that we matter, it's like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I can breathe again." The impact reached beyond the teachers. In the community, parents and students were equally moved by the news. For years, they had witnessed the gradual decline of Jefferson High, watching as beloved teachers left for better opportunities and as morale plummeted. The idea that a world-renowned figure was not only interested in the school's survival, but actively invested in its success felt like a beacon of hope. Parents, some of whom had previously considered transferring their children to other schools, now felt a renewed sense of pride in their local school. The students, many of whom had lost hope themselves, now saw their teacher's passion reignited. "If Bill Gates believes in us," one student said, "then we must be worth something." As the days passed, Jefferson High became a symbol of resilience. The teachers began to re-engage with their students in new, inspired ways. The passion that had long been hidden behind the daily grind of survival resurfaced, as teachers felt empowered to go above and beyond, knowing they had the support to do so. The community rallied together, proud of the transformation that was beginning to take shape. Jefferson High, once on the brink of closure, was now poised to become a model for how education could be truly supported. Bill Gates's intervention had not only saved the school, it had reignited the hopes and dreams of an entire community. And in doing so, he reminded everyone that when the right people step up, anything is possible. In the months that followed Bill Gates's intervention, the transformation at Jefferson High School was nothing short of remarkable. What began as a desperate attempt to keep the school from closing quickly turned into a powerful narrative of renewal and hope, a story that spread far beyond the walls of the school itself, inspiring educational communities across the country. The first noticeable change came in the classrooms. With the new resources Gates had promised, the teachers no longer had to make do with outdated textbooks or shabby materials. The Teacher Excellence Fund allowed for modern technology to be integrated into the curriculum, giving each teacher access to interactive whiteboards, tablets, and software that made learning more engaging and effective. What had once been an underfunded, understaffed school now buzzed with the energy of a forward-thinking institution. Ms. Harris, the history teacher, was among the first to embrace the changes. Equipped with a set of tablets, she began to incorporate multimedia presentations and virtual field trips into her lessons. Her students, once indifferent to history, were now engaged, eagerly participating in discussions about ancient civilizations, watching documentaries, and even connecting with students from other countries through online video chats. "It feels like we're teaching the future," she said with a smile, watching as her students absorbed the content in ways they never had before. In the science labs, Mr. Albright, the chemistry teacher, marveled at the new equipment. No longer did he have to rely on makeshift experiments or underperforming laboratory tools. The school was now fully stocked with high-quality materials, from advanced microscopes to precision scales, enabling his students to carry out experiments that were once reserved for top-tier universities. "This is what science should feel like," he said as his students worked with a sense of wonder, their faces lit up by the glow of Bunsen burners and digital displays. Meanwhile, the Social Studies Department, led by Ms. Patel, implemented interactive community-based projects that had been impossible in the past. With new funding, they were able to take students on field trips to museums, historical sites, and cultural centers, giving them a hands-on approach to learning. Ms. Patel noted how her students had become more connected to their community, developing a deep appreciation for history and culture that transcended the classroom. But the transformation wasn't confined to the academic side of the school. Gates's influence extended into the extracurricular programs as well. The school's music department, once underfunded and struggling to maintain its small group of instruments, suddenly found itself equipped with state-of-the-art instruments and a brand-new music room. The Drama Club, too, received funding to produce its first professional-level play in years. The students, once disillusioned and detached, now found themselves thriving in an environment that felt alive with possibilities. A sense of pride began to emerge from the student body. The hallways that had once been quiet and somber now echoed with the sound of laughter, music, and animated conversations. Student clubs flourished, ranging from debate teams to environmental groups. Every corner of Jefferson High seemed to be brimming with activity, passion, and a renewed commitment to personal growth. The shift was felt in the larger community as well. Local businesses, inspired by the changes at Jefferson High, began to invest in the school, offering internships, mentorships, and donations to continue the progress. The city itself, once wary of the school's decline, now stood behind it as a beacon of success and resilience. But the most telling sign of the transformation came when the state's education board, initially prepared to close the school due to its low performance ratings, reevaluated Jefferson High's progress. With academic scores on the rise and a palpable sense of morale throughout the building, Jefferson High had not only avoided closure, it had become a model of how to revive and rejuvenate an institution on the brink of collapse. In the halls of Jefferson High, teachers, students, and administrators had begun to dream again. The fear and uncertainty that had once clouded the school's future were replaced by optimism. And it wasn't just about the resources or the technology. It was about the belief that anything was possible when people came together and took bold, decisive action. Gates's involvement had sparked something within the school and the community, a belief that challenges could be overcome, that a school on the brink of closure could rise from the ashes and become a symbol of hope for others. Jefferson High was no longer just a school. It was a testament to the power of support, vision, and the unwavering belief that education could change lives. The culmination of Jefferson High's transformation arrived in a moment that would forever be etched in the memories of those present. It came during the school's first ever community event since Bill Gates's intervention, a celebration of the school's new chapter, designed to showcase its academic progress and renewed spirit. The event was held in the school's newly renovated auditorium, which, just a year earlier, had been in disrepair and set to be closed off. Now it buzzed with excitement, filled with teachers, students, parents, local community members, and even media outlets eager to witness the remarkable turnaround. As the evening wore on, the principal, Mrs. Garcia, stood on stage, her hands trembling with emotion. Behind her, the walls were adorned with student artwork, projects, and vibrant displays of the academic and extracurricular achievements made possible by the changes. But as she spoke, her voice grew shaky with gratitude, her eyes occasionally brimming with tears. "When I first arrived here, this school was on the edge," she began, her voice steady but heavy with emotion. "We were told we were failing, that we were no longer needed. But tonight, look at what we've done. We've not just survived, we've thrived. This school has a future, and it's one of hope, opportunity, and unity." The audience erupted into applause. And then, the moment everyone had been waiting for arrived. Bill Gates himself walked onto the stage. The crowd went silent, their eyes fixed on the man who had made all of this possible. Gates, a figure known for his philanthropic work, stood before them with a humility that took everyone by surprise. He was not here to take credit or bask in applause. Instead, he addressed the crowd with words that resonated deeply. "I'm proud to be a part of this story," Gates said, his voice soft but full of conviction. "But the real credit goes to the teachers, the students, and the community who believed in this school, who fought for its future. This isn't just my victory. It's all of ours." In that moment, as tears filled the eyes of teachers and students alike, it became clear. The heart of this school and the heart of its community had been restored. It wasn't just about a financial donation. It was about giving them something more powerful: hope. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden hue over Jefferson High, the community gathered outside the newly restored school building, buzzing with a sense of fulfillment and hope. The air was filled with the sound of laughter, music, and heartfelt conversations, a stark contrast to the despair that had once gripped this place. The teachers, who had once been on the verge of resignation, now stood together, sharing stories of their renewed passion for teaching. Mrs. Davis, a longtime educator at the school, had tears in her eyes as she spoke with her colleagues. "I can't tell you how much it means to walk into a classroom every day and know that we have everything we need to succeed. Bill Gates didn't just save this school, he gave us our dignity back." The transformation was not just physical, it was cultural. The students, once disengaged and uncertain about their futures, now spoke with enthusiasm about their goals and aspirations. The classrooms were filled with energy, creativity, and a renewed sense of purpose. Technology, books, and resources that had once been outdated were now state-of-the-art, fostering an environment where students could truly thrive. And it wasn't just the students and teachers who felt the shift. The local community, which had once seen Jefferson High as a symbol of failure, now rallied behind it. Local businesses provided internships for students, parents volunteered more, and local leaders came forward to offer mentorship and guidance. It was as if a spark had been lit, and the entire town had come together to ensure that this newfound hope would not be squandered. In the final moments of the event, Bill Gates stood in the school's newly renovated courtyard, watching as teachers and students interacted with each other in a way that seemed almost unreal. His decision to step in had been about far more than finances. It had been about giving people the tools and confidence to rebuild what they had once thought lost. As the evening drew to a close, Mrs. Garcia looked out over the crowd, her eyes brimming with pride. This was no longer a story about a school on the brink of collapse. It was a story about resilience, community, and the power of hope. A new beginning had taken root at Jefferson High, and it was one that would continue to bloom for generations to come. As the evening wrapped up and the last guests filtered out of the school grounds, a quiet stillness fell over Jefferson High. The bustling energy of the event had dissipated, leaving behind a sense of accomplishment and reflection. Inside the school, the halls that had once echoed with the sounds of uncertainty now seemed to hum with potential. Bill Gates, standing near the entrance, exchanged a final look with Mrs. Garcia, who had remained by his side throughout the evening. There was no need for words. Both understood the gravity of what had been achieved. The transformation had been profound, not just in the school, but in the lives of the people who had been touched by it. For Mrs. Garcia, the night had been a personal milestone. She had dedicated her life to education, but never had she seen such tangible proof of change. As she stood alone for a moment in the school's lobby, her heart swelled with gratitude. The community had come together, and for the first time in years, it felt like the future was limitless. Bill Gates's generosity had done more than save a school. It had reignited a collective belief in the power of education. For the teachers, students, and parents, this was no longer a place of hopelessness. It was a sanctuary of second chances, where the past no longer defined them, and the future was full of possibilities. As she locked the doors for the night, Mrs. Garcia whispered to herself, "We've only just begun." The tears that welled up in her eyes were not of sadness, but of quiet, joyful certainty.